I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you for joining us here on Closing Arguments. The next story we're going to talk about will not be easy. The next story we talk about it's bad. It's really bad. But it goes, I believe, beyond just those directly responsible. I think there's potentially more responsibility and the responsibility of our system, because we need to protect children. Somehow, some way, the system needs to protect children that are not being protected by those who should be doing it. And in this case, we're talking about 2 generations not protecting this child. Let me introduce you to Kinsleigh Welty, 5 years old, passed away on April 9th. Police were called, reports of an unresponsive child, and this 5-year-old girl, the autopsy results say the cause of death, she likely died of malnutrition. She wasn't eating anything. She wasn't being fed. She wasn't being taken care of with the bare necessities of life. And you look at her face, you look in her eyes, you look at the smile. She's able to squeeze out, not in this picture, but this child was tortured. Tortured. Now, let me introduce you to the suspects. We begin with her mother, 29 years old. Not some teenager who doesn't know what's going on in the world. 29 years old. Charged with murder, criminal confinement, battery on a person less than 14 years old. Suspect number 2. You know who he is. That's mom's boyfriend, 27 years old. Child neglect resulting in death. Criminal confinement. Now, the kicker. Grandma. Grandma. Criminal confinement. What grandparent confines your 5-year-old granddaughter? Who even thinks of doing that? I'm a grandparent. My granddaughter's 5. Those thoughts don't come into your mind. You're trying to do everything and everything for that grandchild. They replace your child. Sorry. Sorry. The pecking order changes when you become a grand. How do you do that? Let me read the quote from police. The circumstances of Kinsleigh's death are horrific and beyond comprehension. No human being, let alone a child, should be treated like she was. These alleged suspects, if convicted, should never step foot outside of a prison. That's from the Indianapolis Metro Police Department. Now some of the disturbing details, because this really happened. This really happened. She spent most of her time locked in a small closet with a dresser blocking the door. She was frequently duct taped and tied to her bed by her grandmother so she wouldn't get up and get food. Of course she's going to try to get up and get food. We just did the Ruby Frankie, Jordy Hildebrand case. Thank goodness those children survived, because this is what would have happened. Authorities found fecal matter and lice on her head, hair, and feet. She weighed less at 5 years old than she did when she was 2.5. The mother had already served time, okay? Had already served time for neglecting her back when she was 3 weeks old. DCS had visited earlier that day, but didn't see Kinsleigh. My guess is she was locked in the closet. We have more details tonight from Rachel Wilkerson with Scripps News, Indianapolis.
If the parents aren't going to love and protect them, and the state's not, who's going to protect them?
Flowers, balloons, and a card saying Forever 5, always in our hearts. Baby Kinsleigh sit outside the Southwest Side home she was found in. Metro Police say the 5-year-old was unresponsive, thin, with sunken eyes, and had feces on her feet and in her hair. Riley Hospital reports Kinsleigh was so malnourished she weighed more at 2.5 years old than at 5.
Traumatized, like terrific. Words can't describe the feelings.
Yeah.
Feel guilty to eat sometimes.
Grandparents Tricia and Brian Welty say the warning signs of Kinsleigh's health were reported, but say the Department of Child Services let them down.
We just don't want her death to be in vain. We want change. We don't want any more kids to have to die because of the failure of the system. It's not right. She was in our home, and she was safe, and she was loved. And she was handed back to her abuser, and she's not here anymore.
The Weltys say Kinsleigh temporarily lived with them twice after other reports of mistreatment. In 2018, her mother, Toni McClure, was formally charged with neglect when Kinsleigh was just a baby. The officer said the home was in one of the worst conditions he'd ever seen and noted a 3-week-old that appeared to be malnourished. Her mother served 21 days in jail for that case.
When she came to us the second time, she was bruised from head to toe. She had clumps
of hair
missing throughout her whole head.
And she was given back.
And she had already tried to starve her to death when she was 3 weeks old. And they gave her back.
Following a welfare check in 2021, the grandparents say they were fearful Kinsleigh would die.
I pleaded with DCS before that court case, my concerns about all that, every bit of it, and I was ignored.
According to police reports, the mother says just before Kinsleigh died, DCS was at the house but didn't see Kinsleigh. McClure says Kinsleigh frequently expressed that she wanted more food or that she was thirsty, but says she had a desire for her to be out of her life. The Weltys want DCS to improve its reunification process.
Your priority should be the children, their safety. It shouldn't be getting them back if the parent's not the safe person, and they failed her. I just want justice for Kinsleigh. I pray to God that they don't plead this down. I pray every charge sticks.
Rachel Wilkerson, WRTV.
I have a lot of questions tonight. I think we all do. This is a total letdown. You know, when I say at the end of the show, don't forget to hug the kids, obviously, I mean like your own children, but I mean us as a society, us as a system. Like this is our top priority, is to protect children. And sometimes they need protection from their own mother, their own grandmother. That's when DCS has to step in, but it's got to be with eyes wide open. Same thing in the courts. You know, in the courts, they want the reunification. They always want the biological parent with the child. I get it. But come on, open your eyes. Open your eyes. Do the job, do the work. There is too much at stake. If a child's being abused at 3 weeks, you think mom is getting better? Well, if she is, stay on top of what mom is doing. Stay on top of it. Verify it. Make it a priority. A 5-year-old can't pick up the phone and make the call. All right, I need a little help. I'm going to bring in our special guest. Joining us tonight in Springhouse, Pennsylvania, international parenting expert, nationally recognized relationship expert with a doctorate in clinical psychology. Dr. Sue Kornbluth is back with us. Great to see you tonight.
You too, Vinny.
You know, Wish it was a different circumstance.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's
Yeah.
not. The first question I have, I'm trying to understand, is why do they fight to get the child back to begin with? Right? What is going through your mind? You're fighting to get custody of this child so you can abuse the child? I don't understand that.
Great question, Vinny. And yes, you know, oftentimes, though, I think what you're not understanding is that that mother or other mothers that, you know, their kids end up in the state services are also working with a case manager who is encouraging them to get better so that they can get their children back to them. So I don't know if everybody knows that. So this mother here probably had someone that was saying to her, you need to get your act together. You need to get better so that you can have your daughter back. Isn't that what you want? And they go along that line. And so therefore, the mother may not be ready to have her daughter back, but she is encouraged to do so.
And it seems the paternal grandparents, the ones we heard from from Scripps News, they were, you know, talking to DCS and expressing their concerns. And I know in a lot of these battles, the families don't get along and there's, but like, could someone, you know, check and see if she's going to the doctor? Can someone check to see what she weighs? I mean, at 5 years old, she weighs less than she weighed at 2.5. That's not how it works with children. Children grow and they get bigger. My 5-year-old granddaughter, I have a tough time picking her up right now. And she's just tall and she's grown. And, you know, I'm not as strong as I used to be, but, you know, it's just the natural progression. This is outrageous how there's no one, especially DCS, who's jumping in and noticing this.
I mean, I'm as outraged as you are. I've been outraged for years. I've spoken out about this. If you notice once that abuse is going on, then you have to do your due diligence to keep going back in and checking on this child over and over and over again to find out what is clearly going on. Here you had the grandparents that just stated, Vinny, that they told Department of Human Services over and over what was going on with this child. The ball was dropped somewhere, and this is not the first time the ball has been dropped where a child has died. I don't know what we need to do to stop this, but we need to do something because more and more children are dying and being placed back into abusers' care. Now,
the other part of this, right? She, at 3 weeks old, there were problems. She was convicted, right? Then you get the case manager, things better. To me, that's when you should be on parental probation, right? And that parental probation should be for as long a period of time until this child would be regularly seen by whether it's teachers at school or someone, right? Complete that probation. But it seems like there's almost an incentive by DCS and by judges to get this reunification done. And we're doing it like this instead of like this.
I agree with you 100%. And reunification with a birth parent, in my opinion, is when a birth parent is safe, has been evaluated over time, and has had supervised visits with their children for a period of time as well. I don't know if there was any supervised visitation. I don't know what goals that this young woman had to meet, but clearly she was not in the state to take her child back.
And for DCS to make a visit and then the child's not there? Well, where is the child? She's 5 years old. She's not out on a date. You know, she's not at school. Where is she? Where is she?
So that's what I cannot understand either, Vinny, is how did they leave that house without seeing the child or finding out where the child was. I do not understand that. It's a great question. Look through the house. You know, it's just the job was not done to the best of Department of Human Services ability. But there's other things that went on here too, Vinnie. I mean, they
Grandma.
were
Grandma. How about Grandma?
Let's talk about Grandma. Grandma knew what was going on. She was also participating in the abuse. I don't know if you read today, but I did, that she was duct taping her to the bed. Did you read that?
Yeah.
And nobody wanted to say anything, Vinnie, because why? They didn't want to get in trouble.
Unreal.
Makes me sick. Makes me sick, Vinnie.
Absolutely. Dr. Sue Kornbluth, great to have you on this Friday night. I'm sure we'll be speaking again. Unfortunately, it will be about stories like this, but you got to shine a light on it because things have to change. Absolutely have to change.
And I'm glad you are, Vinnie. Take care.
Thank you so much. All right, folks. When we come back, our think tank is ready. I know they're angry about this story. The question is, how is our system of justice going to handle it? Brian Watkins, Judge Gail Byers, and Ben Chu up next.
My two best friends were just murdered.
An all-new Court TV special.
We have found 2 bodies, double homicide investigation.
The arrest of Richard M. Allen, Delphi.
Child murder!
Everyone's first reaction was, who?
No criminal history.
They got the wrong guy.
Hiding in plain sight.
He's either the unluckiest guy in the world or he was there.
The Delphi Murders, the case against Richard Allen, premieres April 28th, only on Court TV.
The abuse was only towards Kinsleigh.
The neglect was them all, but
The
the
neglect.
physical abuse was Kinsleigh. It wasn't about she didn't want her. She wanted to see Kinsleigh dead. That was her goal.
The grandparents of Kinsleigh, but there are 2 of the accused in this case. They're accused of the death of little 5-year-old Kinsleigh. Grandma is charged with confining this little girl. The Marion County prosecutor spoke about the case. I want to take a listen, give you a few more details about how this is progressing.
There was a lot of conversation between both mom and grandma about what was going on with this child and what was the best way to deal with some of these issues. And I think that's the part that's so disheartening, is that nobody stepped in and said, this child needs help. What can we do to try to help this child? And the thing that you consistently see and hear in these conversations is people are concerned about their own well-being. Well, I might get in trouble if someone is aware of this. DCS was at the house the day that this child passed away. And they were not aware, or when they made that house visit, they certainly didn't uncover or appreciate what was going on inside the house. And so I think that poses a lot of questions for us as a prosecutor's office in terms of what systems were in place. Did those systems necessarily protect that child? And then what can be done in the future?
Yeah, what can be done in the future is do your job. Like, do your job. These are children. They need help. When they're not getting the protection and the love and the nourishment at home, they need help. Let's bring in our think tank tonight. Joining us in Cleveland, Ohio, retired judge, former prosecutor, and judicial fellow at the National Judicial College, Judge Gail Byers is with us. Joining us in San Diego, California, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Brian Watkins. And in Washington, D.C., the attorney who represented Johnny Depp in his defamation case and a fellow of the American College of Trial Lawyers, Ben Chu. Great to see everyone tonight. This is a tough one, a real tough one, little Kinsleigh Welty. How do you see this case in our court system? Grandma, mom, DCS. Judge?
Vinnie, first of all, this case is heartbreaking. As heartbreaking, at least on its face, is every other similar case that this show has highlighted. And I'll tell you, I think one of the first things that happened in this case is all 3 of those defendants are going to ask to bifurcate their cases, meaning they're going to ask for separate trials. They may even ask for, and they may not get it, but they may ask for separate judges, and they're all going to point the finger at each other. What is so amazing is, as you've outlined, the clear decline of this child's health. And what we know just from basic common sense in biology is that this didn't happen overnight. So if DCF visited the home the day that this child died, my first question would be, when is the last time someone from this agency actually saw this child? Because this does not happen all at once. That meant her health, her treatment, her malnutrition was declining for a while, and either someone potentially falsified records, they never saw her, or no one managed or supervised whoever the social worker was that was responsible for ensuring this child's safety. Because you can never convince me that this child's health declined overnight.
No, not overnight.
No one.
Not when
No.
she's 5 years old and she weighs more than she weighed when she was 2.5. Brian Watkins, and I know the social workers and the folks working for DCS, too many cases, not enough time, and they don't get paid enough. I get all of that. But at the end of the day, if you've got a child in the custody of a parent who had to get the reunification because she had been convicted previously when this child was 3 weeks old, I think there just has to be a more serious approach to children that are potentially in danger. Like proof of, show me the child. The child's not here. Where's the child? Take me to the child right now.
It's amazing that didn't happen. You know, this is one of the cases that I wish some of those Russian police wouldn't do the interrogation. It just outrages me so. But I have to put on my lawyer hat.
Absolutely.
And look at this objectively, okay? Now, the first time she got in trouble, the child was 3 weeks old. So it's been 4+ years, and she's been doing well enough to keep the child. We look at those pictures that you're showing, and she doesn't look that malnourished and that abused in these photos. She looks like she had a good time at Halloween. And so you got to put that in the mix also. I know this didn't happen overnight, but DCS, you know, my mother was a social worker, and she will tell you how hard that job is. It's not that they don't do their job. The job is extremely difficult. And yes, we want children to be with their biological parents. I mean, don't get me wrong, kids are abused in foster care and in other homes all the time. So it's a catch-22. So it's a tough situation. And, you know, I don't know why the charges are so light. Charge them all with second-degree murder and a conspiracy. They all aided and abetted, and they all conspired. If there's phone conversations, that's conspiracy. So I don't know why the grandmother's only charged with confinement. She participated in actions that led to the child's death. Murder too. Second-degree murder. Charge her.
Ben, and if grandma is accused of duct taping this child so she couldn't get food and the child dies of malnourishment, I mean, clearly taking part in all of this.
Vinnie, I totally agree with you and Brian. I think they all should be charged to the maximum. And I think your analogy to the Ruby Franke case is really apt, although this obviously had even more tragic consequences, but they should throw the book at all these people.
Yeah, that's the thing, Judge, that shocks me as I do this show and this program. When we come across these stories where you have parents and I don't know what, you know, in the Ruby Franke case, we know they were off the rails, and there was something going on up here. Not that it wasn't a defense to what happened, but we kind of know what pushed in that direction. But like to punish and torture and withhold, how do you withhold food from a child? A child needs calories. They are growing. Every single day they need more and more and more. That's like basic life. Like everyone knows this. And how anyone could conceive of punishing a child by withholding food, that is cruel. That is cruel.
Vinnie, I think that what we can expect, just as the rest of the panel has indicated, is that these are perhaps the preliminary charges. I suspect that with more information that becomes available both to the police and to the public that there are going to be more serious charges that this trio faces, if not more people, because I'm inclined to think that there may have been others who, or if not involved, they certainly had a duty to report and a duty to do more. This is absolutely repulsive. I don't know that I have the words, but I do agree that as a prosecutor, you have to take off the emotion and look at it from the elemental standpoint, whether or not you can prove the charges either as they are currently constituted or the more serious ones that may be coming down the pipe.
Yeah, and trust me, you put this in front of a jury, no one is voting not guilty. It will not happen. It will not happen. All right, they're staying with us the rest of the hour. Our think tank up next.
Karen Reed, is she a cop killer or was she framed by police who covered up their own murder? That will be the question for the jury as this supercharged trial gets underway next week on Court TV with opening statements.
Based on the offer of proof on Friday, I am well within my rights, pursuant to the case law, to exclude the third-party culprit defense. I'm not going to do that now. I'm going to give you a chance to develop it through relevant, competent, admissible evidence, but you cannot open on it.
Karen Reed is accused of murdering her police officer boyfriend, John O'Keefe. She says she didn't do it. She says she was framed by police. We've been hearing about this for months. Every time they're in court, the defense team is talking about this alleged conspiracy between the lead investigator and people that were inside the home where John O'Keefe was found on the lawn of. And that's all we've been hearing about. But the jury in the case, during opening statements next week, will hear nothing about it. Judge not permitting it. They can't open on it. If they can develop some admissible evidence during the course of the trial, the judge will consider them, will consider their ability to argue that someone else is responsible for the death of John O'Keefe. This is a huge ruling. This is now an uphill battle, I think, for the defense. I don't think the judge really wants those types of arguments in this case. How big of a setback is all of this? Let's take a listen, though, to some of the evidence that the defense says they do have in this case and what it means if they can't argue that someone else inside the house did this.
The federal investigators hired, independent of us, we had no idea, and independent of the Commonwealth, hired a professional reconstructionist, 3 PhDs, to look into exactly this issue. Did Karen Reed's car, did her SUV make contact with John O'Keefe? And their conclusion to a person was his injuries were inconsistent with the damage on the car. The damage on the car was inconsistent with having made contact with John O'Keefe's body. In other words, the car didn't hit him, and he wasn't hit by the car.
Shortly after John O'Keefe died, Brian Laughlin told us that he did plow the street in front of 34 Fairview, made a pass by there at 2:30 in the morning on January 29th. And when he passed that house, there was not a lot of snow that had fallen. Visibility was good. The lights were working on his plow. He passed right by the area where John O'Keefe's body would have been if Karen Reed had actually struck him with her vehicle. And he confirmed that at 2:30 a.m., plowing that area, there was no body there.
Why is Jennifer McCabe one of the parties that was inside the house that night, the sister-in-law of Brian Albert? Why was she Google searching, how long does it take for a human body to die in the cold? The Apple Cocoa core data indicates, or the core time indicates exactly what time that Google search occurred. That time was at 2:27 and 40 seconds in the morning on January 29th. That's 3.5 hours before John O'Keefe's body was found.
The Apple health data that Alan referenced earlier shows that he did walk, I think, approximately 80 steps and went up and down approximately 3 flights of stairs. You don't do that by getting out of a vehicle and being struck by the vehicle.
So obviously, we're asking questions about your relationship with Julie Albert, with Chris Albert, and with Colin Albert. Do you understand that? Answer, yes, sir. Question, and you're saying that you're minimizing, quote, minimizing your relationship to the grand jury, correct? Answer, yes. He finally, under the scrutiny of a federal grand jury, admitted that he had been lying about his relationship to the Alberts.
He has a personal interest in getting Karen Reed convicted. If he can use whatever means he has at his disposal to convict her, and he succeeds, that would vindicate him and harm the federal investigation of his office. On the other hand, if she's found not guilty, as we expect she will be, he knows that he and his office will remain in the crosshairs of the federal investigation.
Jury selection continuing Monday. Opening statements expected next week. Could be as early as Tuesday. Of course, you'll see it right here on Court TV, and we'll be talking about it on this program. Let's bring back in our think tank, Judge Gail Byers, Brian Watkins, Ben Chu. Brian, so the defense has a very specific theory on what happened here, and they will not be able to tell it to this jury. So now this sort of reverts to, if the judge doesn't allow them to make these specific allegations against specific people, into just a classic reasonable doubt case.
That's right. And I hate when judges do that. Don't let you try your case. You can bring up anything that makes their case have doubt, as long as it's reasonable. Clearly, this is reasonable. How do we know it's reasonable? They've got half the community convinced already with this evidence. More than half the community, I would say. And so to preclude and prohibit a lawyer from saying this in opening statement is just wrong by the judge. And it's probably going to be appealed, because the opening statement is what you think the evidence is going to show, not what the prosecution is going to put up. It's what you, the defense thinks the evidence is going to show, and they think they can show this. It's not, you don't have to show everything that you say you're going to do in opening statement. There's no law that requires you to do that. You can say whatever you want in opening statement, what you think the evidence is going to show, and if that's what you think it's going to show, then you should be able to say it in opening statement. If you're able to not produce it, well, they can comment that in closing argument. But to limit them in opening statement, outrageous.
Ben Chu, how much of a problem do you think this will be for Karen Reed's defense? Is this a huge win for the prosecution?
Yeah, I do think it's a huge win for the prosecution, and I agree with Brian. I think the defense should have had leeway to do this. As I understand her ruling, they're not necessarily precluded from bringing it up later, but they're at a big disadvantage not being able to allude to it in opening.
Yeah, the opening statement to me is the filter through which the jury sees and hears the evidence. So this is going to be much different, Judge, with this ruling. You know, their entire theory of the case, they can't tell the jury in their opening statement. Prosecution will tell their theory and what they believe the evidence is going to be. In listening to the judge, I just got the feeling that this is a huge uphill climb to try to garner enough evidence to convince this judge that they can argue there was a police conspiracy and cover-up here.
And so, Vinnie, I actually take a slightly different approach. Although I do believe that the prosecution did win a bit on this, if you've had a chance to even see some of the arguments by Karen Reed's defense attorney, I actually find them to be fairly savvy and really good, Ben Chu-like good. So I believe that, first of all, even though there's the limitation on opening statements, all they have to do is wait for the prosecution to call the first witness, because this is about developing that theory through cross-examination. And I genuinely believe that within the first couple witnesses that the prosecution calls, the strategy from the defense is going to be the development of that theory. And no doubt, the first time an officer gets on the stand and starts talking about their investigation, they can't help but open the door to this for the benefit of the defense. Now, will it be a little more difficult? Remember, opening statements aren't evidence. These are just, it's the path that the defense and the prosecution want to take you down throughout a trial.
It's the map.
It doesn't promise. Yeah, it doesn't promise that these things are actually going to be said, that the testimony or the evidence is going to be entered, or that the theories will actually develop the way they anticipate. And so I don't think it's so bad because they won't be able to say it in opening statements. I do think, however, these attorneys are going to be sharp enough to develop it throughout the life of the case. And that's when closing arguments is going to wrap it all together for them.
Brian, if they do get to the point where they can argue this conspiracy, is there a danger to that? Because we hear about conspiracy theories. You're talking about coordination between a lot of different people here at a lot of different levels to frame Karen Reed. Do you think it's even plausible to make that argument?
You know, conspiracy theories are inherently very risky defenses because conspiracy theories are just that. Something that someone's saying that's pretty wild and out there, and it's very difficult to convince people of conspiracy theories. But if they have the evidence to back it up, and they really need this in opening statement because they need the jury to be looking for this. And that's what an opening statement is, a roadmap to the closing argument. And if the jurors aren't looking for it, it may you know, go over their heads. Yeah. And that's why it's so important. You know, the judge said it perfectly. What do you care when I say an opening statement? It's not evidence. It's just what I think the evidence is going to show. So how dare you preclude me from that?
And the cross-examination now becomes crucial in this case for the defense. Prosecutors have to plow forward and just prove those elements beyond any and all reasonable doubt. All right, fasten the seatbelts. Up next.
In tonight's Tank Takes, a man is making pizza inside his apartment when he becomes very agitated by his roommate who is coughing. The pizza man then throws the dough at his roommate, and tonight we're wondering if he will need a lawyer. Get it? Need a lawyer.
There was pounding on the door. Bang, bang, bang.
He said that we'd seen his face and there was no way that he could ever let us go.
I survived because I'm a born fighter.
I Survived. Next on Court TV.
There's no way, Morgan, I can ever come up with this.
We are underway in the trial of doomsday prophet Chad Daybell.
Prosecutors say they will seek the death penalty.
It's the doomsday prophet Chad Daybell on trial.
Welcome back. Time for tonight's Tank Takes, where we take a look at the world of crime and justice and all those stories we gather up for the end. Still with us, our think tank Judge Gail Byers, Brian Watkins, and Ben Chu. Are you ready?
Ready.
All right, first story. I'm calling this one Seizure and Desist. This involves a lawyer, right? She's working as a lawyer in her office and is apparently hitting on one of the employees of the office, making some sexual advances to her. She rebuffs the lawyer, and then the lawyer accuses her of having a relationship with one of the lawyer's clients, which she denies, and then she apparently punches her in the face. Here she is. This is the lawyer, you know, before and after this. Now, after punching her, you know, police arrived. She attacked the police, spit on them, faked a seizure, spit on a medic, and then admitted to faking the seizure. Ben Chu, what was the worst thing that she did, allegedly?
Well, I think you better roll out the Fourth Amendment because this is a case of illegal search and seizure.
Bingo. Brian Watkins.
The worst thing she did is be a lawyer and do all that, giving us a bad name. We got to get our name cleaned up.
All right, Judge?
I would say the worst thing she did was actually going to the hospital and utilizing some important services that certainly someone with a true medical incident deserved more so than her.
Absolutely. Next story. Feeling saucy. A man who just happens to live in Florida. It's very random. He just happens to live there. Was making some nice pizza, right? Which is what I'd like to do after the show here. But then his roommate named Elvis, thank you very much, started coughing a little bit. And it really kind of set off the pizza man. He got so angry with his roommate that he took the dough and hit him in the back of the head. And now he's been arrested. I'm wondering tonight, Brian Watkins, is he going to need a lawyer?
Yes, absolutely. He's going to be charged with assault with a delicious weapon.
Ben Chu?
I think Elvis should forget the criminal charges and file a civil suit, and then he'll be rolling in the dough.
Oh, he's so good tonight. Final story. I'm calling this one for the road. Again, we go down to Florida. We just happen to be there. Man suspected of DUI and raising all kinds of trouble in town. Let's take a look at the video.
The situation is he's used a vehicle multiple times and threatened me with a gun multiple times. And actually, I just thought about it. A gentleman that lives a couple houses this way, he's on a walker. He actually walk down here at 6 o'clock tonight. And he was another eyewitness of this kid literally reversing his car from his driveway right here to where the tail end of your cop car is. And opening his window and telling me he was going to shoot me right in front of the... You see what I mean?
Yeah, I'm close for him. I'm talking to him now. He just has 2 beers in his hand.
This beer is cold, sir. I don't want to drink it. Come check me. I'm not going to get it.
I got you. Just for right now, we're just going to stay right here, all right?
Well, I want to drink this beer. Is that cool?
That's 10-4. We're in the front of his address.
I haven't done nothing wrong.
Can I drink the beer? It's cool. Hey, Ben, will you be cracking it open a mega pint tonight after the show?
He had 2 beers. He should have offered one to the officer.
Unbelievable. By the way, this is the 2-year anniversary of when Johnny Depp took the stand, ladies and gentlemen. Judge Gail Byers, your thoughts?
Well, I will tell you, he's probably getting ready to join the pizza guy, get some extra pepperoni, and not let a cold one go to waste.
Brian Watkins, 10 seconds. You have the final word.
It's always a good time for a cold one.
Always. All right. Thank you all so much. Our think tank. We'll see you again really, really soon. Judge Gail Byers, Brian Watkins, Ben Chu. Before we go tonight, folks, please take a look at your television screens. We have a missing child tonight who needs your help. Please, please pick up the phone, make the call. If you see Kinsleigh Evans, Kinsleigh Evans is missing, call the Springfield Police Department, 1-800-THE-LOST, or you can call 911. Let's see if we can get Kinsleigh to a safe place this weekend. I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you for watching. Have a great night, and as always, please don't forget to hug the kids.